Story 3. The Deep Station. I'm going to tell you about something that happened during my last deployment in 2019. I was a reactor technician, which meant I spent most of my time in the engineering spaces, keeping the nuclear reactor running smoothly. It's a demanding job, but I was good at it. I'd been doing it for 7 years by that point, and I knew that boat inside and out. Or so I thought. We were on a classified mission. I can't tell you where, but it was deep in contested waters, doing surveillance. We'd been submerged for 43 days straight, which wasn't a record, but it was long enough that everyone was starting to feel the psychological weight of it. The air tastes stale after that long. The walls seem closer. People get irritable. I was on the mid-watch, 0000 to 0600, in the reactor compartment. It's one of the lonelier positions on the boat. The space is loud with machinery, hot from the reactor, and usually it's just you and maybe one other tech, monitoring gauges and running routine checks. This particular night, I was alone. My partner had gone to the head and wasn't back yet, which was taking longer than it should, but I didn't think much of it. I was doing a routine inspection of the secondary cooling system when I noticed something odd. There was a hatch in the aft bulkhead that I didn't recognize. Now, let me be clear about something. I knew this boat. I'd been serving on her for 3 years. I'd walked through every accessible compartment, studied every schematic. I knew where every hatch led, every system connection, every maintenance access point. This hatch didn't exist in my memory. It was small, maybe 4 feet high, painted the same gray as every other surface. But it looked older. The paint was chipped around the edges, and the handle was a different style from the standard hatches, more like something from a much older submarine design. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to figure out if I was misremembering the layout. But no. That section of bulkhead should be solid. On the other side was just water, ballast tanks, the outer hull. I walked over to it, my unease growing with each step. There was no label on it, no designation stenciled on like there should be. Just a blank metal surface and that old-style handle. I reached out and touched it. The metal was cold, colder than it should be in the warm reactor space. I could feel vibration through it, but not the normal vibration of the boat's systems. This was different, slower, like a heartbeat. I should have left it alone, should have reported it, asked someone else what the hell it was. But curiosity overrode caution. I gripped the handle and turned it. The mechanism was stiff, like it hadn't been opened in years, but it gave way with a grinding squeal of metal on metal. I pulled the hatch open. Beyond it was a passageway I'd never seen before. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a man to walk through, and it descended at a steep angle. The walls were unpainted metal, covered in condensation and rust. A string of old-style incandescent bulbs provided weak, flickering light that faded into darkness about 20 feet down. This was impossible. This space couldn't exist. There was nothing on the schematics, nothing in the boat's layout that would place a passageway here. And yet I was looking right at it. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to close the hatch and walk away. But I couldn't. I was compelled. I had to know what was down there. I stepped through the hatch, ducking my head to avoid hitting the low frame. The air inside was different, colder, damper, with a metallic taste that reminded me of old blood. My footsteps echoed strangely as I started down the sloping passageway. The incandescent bulbs flickered above me, creating dancing shadows that made the rust-stained walls seem to move. I could hear water dripping somewhere deeper in, and that strange, slow vibration continued, resonating through the deck plates under my feet. I descended for what felt like a long time, though it probably wasn't more than a couple minutes. The passageway made a sharp turn, and suddenly, I was standing at the entrance to a chamber. It was a control room of some kind, but not like any I'd seen on our boat. The equipment was ancient: analog gauges, old-style switches, technology from decades ago. A few of the instruments were still lit, glowing with a sickly phosphorescent light. Papers were scattered on the deck, yellowed and curling with age. There was a logbook on the central console. I picked it up with trembling hands and opened it. The entries were dated. The most recent was from March 1968. March 1968. That was over 50 years ago. I read through a few entries, my confusion growing. They were routine operational logs, normal submarine activities. But the dates were wrong. And the handwriting. It looked hurried toward the end, stressed. The final entry read, "Water pressure increasing in aft compartments. Flooding cannot be controlled. Bow planes unresponsive. Descending past crushed depth. God help us." My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the logbook. I knew what this was, what I was looking at. This was the USS Scorpion, or the Thresher, or one of the other submarines lost during the Cold War, never recovered, officially resting on the ocean floor thousands of miles from here. But how could it be? How could this space exist inside our boat? I heard something then, a sound from deeper in the chamber, from a hatch on the far side, a metallic groan, like a bulkhead flexing under immense pressure. Then voices, faint, distorted, but unmistakably human voices calling out in panic. "We're going down. Emergency surface. She won't respond." The voices of men who'd been dead for over 50 years echoing through this impossible space. I backed away, my heart hammering. The lights flickered more violently now, and I could hear water, not dripping, flowing. The sound was getting louder, coming from multiple directions. I turned and ran back up the passageway. The incandescent bulbs were going dark behind me, section by section, and that heartbeat vibration had become frantic, desperate. Water was seeping through the walls now. I could see it gleaming in the failing light, could feel the deck becoming slick under my feet. I reached the hatch and threw myself through it, back into the reactor compartment. I slammed the hatch shut behind me and spun the handle, sealing it. Then I stood there, gasping, my heart trying to break out of my chest. The reactor compartment was normal, bright, hot, filled with the familiar sounds of functioning equipment, like nothing had happened. I looked at the bulkhead where the hatch should be. Smooth metal. No hatch. No seams. No handle. Just solid bulkhead, exactly as it should be. My partner came back a moment later, complaining about upset stomach. He looked at me, concerned. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't know how to answer that. What could I say? That I'd just found a passageway to a dead submarine? That I'd heard the voices of men who drowned decades ago? I'd sound insane. So I said nothing, finished my shift, acted normal, but I couldn't let it go. Over the next few days, I researched every submarine lost during the Cold War. I looked at crew photos, accident reports, anything I could access through the classified network. Then I found something that made me go cold. A crew photo from the USS Scorpion, taken a week before she was lost in 1968. I recognized one of the faces. He'd been on our boat. Not during my time, but I'd seen him in old crew photos in the wardroom, memorial photos of sailors who'd served on our submarine over the years. Petty Officer James Morris served on our boat in 1967, transferred to the Scorpion in early 1968, lost when she went down in May of that year. He'd served on both boats, a connection between them, a thread linking our submarine to one that had died over 50 years ago. I showed the photo to the senior chief, told him part of what I'd experienced, carefully edited to not sound completely crazy. He got very quiet, then told me something I'll never forget. "Boats remember," he said, "especially the ones that have been through trauma. Salvaged boats, boats that have lost crew members, boats that have come close to disaster. They remember, and sometimes under the right conditions, those memories surface." "That's not possible," I said. He gave me a long look. "Son, we're sitting in a metal tube miles below the surface of the ocean, kept alive by controlled nuclear fission and recycled air. We left possible behind the moment we dove. I never saw that hatch again, never found that passageway. But sometimes, during the quiet hours of the midwatch, I'd hear things. Distant sounds of men shouting, of alarms blaring, of water rushing. Always faint, always just on the edge of hearing. Other crew members started reporting strange experiences too. Cold spots in certain compartments, the feeling of being watched, equipment malfunctions that couldn't be explained. The XO finally brought in a chaplain to perform a blessing, which was unusual, but nobody questioned it. We finished the deployment and returned to port. I put in my papers for discharge 2 weeks later. I'd had enough. 7 years in the submarine service, and I was done. I heard through the grapevine that the boat was decommissioned last year, officially for budget reasons. But I wonder if whatever was happening on board just got worse. If that connection to the dead submarine, to the lost crew, just became too strong. I work on surface ships now. I can see the sun, feel the wind. When things go wrong, I can jump overboard if I have to. There's escape, but I still have nightmares. Dreams where I'm back in that passageway, descending deeper and deeper, and the lights are going out one by one behind me. In the dreams, I can never find the hatch to get back out. I just keep descending into the cold and the dark, while those voices get louder, more desperate, calling out for help that never came. And I wake up gasping, checking to make sure I can see the sky through my window, reminding myself that I'm on solid ground. Some people say submarines are the safest place in the Navy. You're protected from the storms, from the waves, from the chaos of the surface world. But they're wrong. The ocean doesn't forget, and neither do the boats that sail beneath it. Whatever I found that night, whatever space I stepped into, it wasn't part of our submarine. It was something else. An echo, maybe. A memory. A thin place where the barrier between past and present, between the living and the dead, wore too thin. I don't know if Petty Officer Morris and his crewmates are still down there, trapped in that moment of disaster, or if what I experienced was just some kind of psychological breakdown from the stress of deployment. But I know I'll never go back underwater, never seal myself inside a steel coffin and sink into the deep, because some depths aren't meant to be explored, and some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. The ocean keeps its secrets well, and in the deep, dark places where light never reaches and pressure can crush steel like paper, perhaps some mysteries are better left undisturbed. These 3 crew members survived their encounters with the inexplicable. They surfaced, returned to land, and tried to rebuild their lives in the world of sunlight and open air. But they'll never forget what they experienced in the depths. The knocking that couldn't exist. The crew member who wasn't on the roster. The passageway to a submarine that died decades ago. We may never know the truth of what they encountered, but their stories remind us that even in our modern age of technology and scientific understanding, there are still things we cannot explain, still experiences that defy our rational worldview. And perhaps that's the most terrifying thing of all.